All right, I'm gonna go ahead and jump in and people can watch this on the replay because I know people are engaged right now. All right. So happy Wednesday, happy woke Wednesday. Thank you for jumping on with me tonight. If you didn't jump on with me tonight and you happen to be watching this on replay, I still appreciate it, right? As I said earlier, I didn't even realize that the vice presidential debates were on tonight. Had I known that, I probably would have just done a quick snippet of something, and done it earlier before the debate started or something. But I'm consistent, so I was like, well, do it at my normal time, 8 o'clock. That's what I'm doing, not realizing. So anyhow. Thanks for jumping on tonight. You might have noticed from the title, today's title for Woke Wednesday is Squirrel. So I don't know if you've seen the movie. I think it's from Up, because I can tell you I haven't seen the movie. I've just heard the reference so many times that I started using it in some of my workshops. So I think it's Up, and the dog gets distracted and sees a squirrel and starts going off on his own direction. So squirrel, that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about distractions. I don't even have to tell you to close your eyes to imagine something, because guess what? Chances are right now as I'm talking, you've got other things going on in your head. It might be, what am I going to wear to work tomorrow? It might be, oh, I wish these kids would shut up. No, I'm just joking. Hopefully you're not thinking that. It might be, I wonder what's going on the presidential and vice presidential debate. They might be more interesting than Aaron. I don't know, but you probably have a whole bunch of other things going on in your brain right now. And here's the thing, we very much live in a time right now where distraction has become so normal that we don't even necessarily realize that it's happening. So when I was looking at some information just to back this up, I found that there was a study done in 2005, and this was done on people that were at work, but people in 2005 in this study, people who were at work, who checked their voice or checked their telephones and their emails regularly, had a 10-point drop in their IQ. Just from being that distracted regularly, that they check their email and their phones, they had a 10-point drop in IQ. Now, I want you to hear this, because this on the flip side is kind of interesting. People who smoke marijuana only had a 5-point drop in their IQ. Now, I'm not condoning anything, but I just want you to know that it's interesting. You might find it just as interesting as I did, that distraction drops your IQ even more than smoking marijuana. Now, more recently in a 2018 survey they found that every 12 minutes on average, people check their phones. And I don't know about you, but I know there are times that it's way more often than every 12 minutes. In the same study, they found out that 70% of people never ever turn their phones off. Now, generally when I turn my phone off, I tell you guys, I put myself out there. Generally when I turn my phone off, it's because something's not working, so I power it down and then start it back up. I can't tell you the last time I turned my phone off and just left it off, right? And 40% of people check their phone within the first 5 minutes of waking up. That doesn't mean if that's your alarm, you just reach over and quiet your alarm, dismiss your alarm, whatever the case may be. That's you checking your phone to see, do I have any messages? What happened on Facebook overnight? What happened on Instagram overnight? Whatever the case may be. So when we look at that, we have to understand that this has become a way of life for so many people. And we know that distractions, we tend to look at distractions nowadays as these are normal parts of our life. We've just kind of adopted them, but we know that they're not that healthy for you. So some of the things that tend to distract people pretty regularly, social media is a big one. And apparently Facebook and Instagram are even talking about putting some things into place to limit people's time on their sites. Now, that apparently was something that they started discussing a few years ago. It hasn't happened yet, so I'm guessing they've decided the distraction makes them way more money, and so they stopped looking at it probably. We know that watching television is a distraction. I'm not saying you can never do it, but it's a distraction. We know that politics right now, oh man, we're in it right now. Politics can be a distraction. You look at how much time people are spending just watching and looking and arguing over what's going on in the political world right now. And that's a distraction, right? We look at, let's see, the news can be a distraction. And usually what we see on the news is negative. Other people's expectations of us can be a distraction. I'm going to talk about some of these a little bit more in a second, so don't worry. Work, our job, can be a distraction. So understand that these things that we do very regularly are distractions. I've seen some memes going around in the last few weeks where the meme is something along the lines of like they're having to rewind the TV series or restart the series or something because the whole time they were watching 3 episodes in, they were on their phone the whole time. And it's a meme, but how real is that? I know plenty of times that I've been, engaged. I sat down to watch a TV show. I actually had to call myself out on this last week. I'll tell you guys about that. But you sit down to watch a TV show or read or do something else, and the next thing you know, you're on your phone and you don't even know what happened, right? And we laugh about it, but that's a distraction. So let's see, did I miss anything? No, nothing that I wanted to talk about. So we know that in order to reach our goals, we have to have laser focus. We have to be focused, but distractions are the enemy of our focus. So how our distractions can affect us? Well, there's definitely physiological ways that distractions can affect us. So we know that these distractions, particularly your phone, they increase your cortisol and your adrenaline levels. And so cortisol and adrenaline, those are your stress hormones, and those are meant to be experienced in short bursts. So you think about those stories that you've probably heard of once or twice where a car fell on somebody and somebody was strong enough to lift the car up to get the person out. They're meant to be experienced in these short bursts. Or I'm running because this bear is chasing me. That's not meant to be your lifelong thing. Imagine if that were your lifelong struggle, is your whole life is you being chased by a bear and your stress and your adrenaline levels are up that high. We also know that being, especially on your phone or being distracted by things, decreases your dopamine and your serotonin levels. And those are your feel-good hormones, those hormones that help you to relax and feel calm. And so when we look at that, we wonder, we see people feel almost are always like going. And people probably think that about me too. And so they've actually studied and looked at this and said, some of this has the same effect as an addiction. And you look at it and you go, wow, they've done studies that say your smartphone can cause the same types of reactions as an addiction to a drug. Now, so physiologically, that might also mean that you feel more exhausted. You don't sleep well. Could also mean that you experience more body aches because, you're always uptight, stuff like that. So understand that it affects you physiologically. It can also give you a false sense of power. And this is not going to be the most popular opinion right now. But when we look at some of these distractions, this false sense of power, I'm going to use politics for this one. So many people right now are wrapped up in this election. And I'm not saying don't vote. I'm not saying do vote. It's up to you. Everybody gets to make their own choice. But what I will say is I think that people, when they look at this, they get some level of a false sense of power. If you look at it over your lifetime, have you ever noticed a really big difference in how well your life was going based on who the president was? Most people that I talk to have never noticed that, but people still get so wrapped up. I have seen people that have had so much conflict with their families that they're unfollowing each other on social media. They're not talking to each other over politics. That's a distraction. Now, we should know that our relationships with our family are more important than politics, right? But a lot of people are getting distracted by that. They have this false sense of power. They feel like I can go out, I can change the world, right? Where this is going to make such a big difference. And again, I just want you to think, has it in the past? Has whoever the president of the United States been in the past, has that greatly affected how well you did in life? Sometimes when Well, these distractions often cause us to lose focus on our own goals, or even not even develop, realize, know that we have our own goals. We get so caught up in these other things that we don't have goals. So I'm going to use the example of work. So often people go to work and they work so hard at work, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but they work so hard at work that when they come home, they're so exhausted that they don't want to think about what they really want in life. We see a lot of these people, that they're just in life. I always talk about it as being on a conveyor belt of life, right? And they don't even realize that maybe they want more. Keeping you in your place. And I'll tie this together with making you dependent. So number one, I'll use a couple examples on this. This could be where people feel that they get distracted, and so they're so focused on other people's expectations of them that keeps them in their place. Because I'm so busy, I've been here before, I'm so busy doing what everybody else expects me to do or wants me to do that I don't even have time to focus on myself and what Aaron needs and what Aaron's goals are and different things like that. Right? So it keeps me in my place. That might mean it keeps me in a relationship, that keeps me on a job that maybe I need to be looking at. And for all of my people on LinkedIn that are going to watch this later that I work with, don't think I'm saying I'm trying to leave. I'm not. But I have been at the workforce center now for 14 years. It just happened last Friday. It was 14 years. And I'll tell you what, I see a lot of people that get this false sense of security. And they either say, oh, I have a job. So they don't look at their goals. Or, we saw this a lot. I've seen it a lot over the years of being. So it's not just with COVID, but a lot of times people will be on unemployment and they'll say, no, I'm not going to take that other job offer that I got because I'm making more on unemployment. And we saw that at really big time with that extra $600 with the COVID response. But the whole thing is they're not realizing that $600 is temporary, and that job offer could have been something that's much more long term. So they dismiss something that's longer term for something that's temporary, and they go, no, I'm good. They have this false sense of security, right? And so I see this a lot at my job. And then they become dependent on a system because they're saying unemployment's got me. Right? Whatever, the government's got me. The government's going to take care of me. And we have to stop putting our trust and our faith in that. If you're a person, if you're a Christian, you've read in the Bible where it says you're not supposed to put your faith in men, you're supposed to put it in God, yet you're putting it in the government. You're making the government responsible for you. You're making the government this somehow hero in your life that's taking care of these needs that you have, instead of going out and doing for you what you need to do. And so sometimes that causes us to become a little complacent as well. And that's not necessarily a good thing. Keeping you focused on other people's goals. So Jim Rohn said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And again, that's not to say don't work hard on your job. I don't want you to do that. Be a good employee. That's important. But that also means don't come home and not work on yourself. You have to work on yourself. You have to work on your goals. All these other things out here are distractions. And so when we look at it, if you look again over time, most parents will say, I want my children to have better than what I have. Most of us will tell our children that. I hope that one day you have more than what I have. I hope you have better than what I have. But if we look over time at our own family history, a lot of times our family has stayed in the same place, generation after generation after generation. And that's because the way everything is, the things that they push us towards, go to college. And once again, I'm not saying college is a bad thing. My daughter just got her first acceptance email like I posted yesterday. But when we're pushing everybody onto the conveyor belt of life, go to school, get good grades, go to college, go work for someone. When we put people on the conveyor belt of life, and we don't encourage people to become creative and to be, and to have these ideas and want to reach for their own goals. And when we encourage people by having 4 TVs in a house with 2 people or something like that, I've got 3 for 2 people. So I'm putting myself out there again, but they hardly ever get turned on now. So that's the good thing. So when we're pushing people onto this path, we have to understand that that's just distracting people. Thank you, Anthony. Your words are my illumination. I'm gonna have to talk about that in a minute. So we're putting people on this conveyor belt of life, and it's not serving anyone. It's not serving that individual because they could go do better. It's not serving their family, their generations, their legacy. Most of us, if we look at it, I don't want my legacy. So let me read this quote to you. So Bob Goff said, "What distracts us begins to define us." Now, I don't know if he was a baseball player, because then he said, we don't need to swing at every pitch. I don't know. That's a baseball termination. But I don't know. But I look at it and I go, what distracts us begins to define us. And I think about that. So really think about that. If you find that you've been really distracted by this election, by the politics right now, do you want that to be what defines you? What do you want to define you? See, I want my daughter, when she looks back, when she's telling my grandkids about me growing up, first of all, she's probably going to say I'm funny. She's probably going to tell stories about how I used to talk to her in different accents. I can't even do them anymore. I lost it. I don't know where that went. I hope she tells them that I'm a good cook, all sorts of stuff. But one of the things I want her to tell them is how hard I worked, how we had such meaningful conversations, and I always pushed her, how I want more for her and them, and how I worked to achieve that, right? I'm working on it. So I hope that down the line, she has that story to tell. I want that to define me. I don't want my distraction. I don't want me being some like social media guru or queen or anything else to be what defines me. I want the legacy that I leave behind for other generations, and not just in my family, but I have big goals, people. I have really big ideas of what I want to do with my life. So just understand, we got to get away from these distractions. It's so important. Now, some ideas to get away from your distractions. So one thing that I read about today, and I've never heard this before, was the 5 more rule. So when you're doing something and you feel like quitting, you do 5 more of whatever. So if I'm doing push-ups and I'm like, oh God, okay, I'm done, do 5 more. If I'm reading a book and I'm starting to like get distracted, right? And I'm like, oh, I might as well put this book down. Read 5 more pages. If, let's say, I am trying to meditate. So I do this a lot. I found that my sleep meditations work the best because eventually it shuts my mind off. But if you're trying to meditate and you find yourself getting distracted and you're like, never mind, I might as well just get up and do other stuff. No, do 5 more minutes. If you're working on building a business or something like that, if you're writing a book, Anthony, if you're writing a book and you're like, okay, I'm done for the day, do 5 more pages, right? Do 5 more calls, do 5 more whatever. Listen to 5 more minutes of audio. So the 5 more minute, I like that one. I had never heard of it. Meditate, that's a good thing. Now be kind to yourself, because like I just admitted, I'm guilty. And I've told you guys this on calls before, that I get real frustrated with myself because sometimes even when I'm trying to pray, my brain starts going in 100 different directions. And I'm like, that is so disrespectful. Like, why can't I even get my head together for a few minutes to pray? And that's normal. So don't be too hard on yourself. The more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. I promise. And give yourself, you have to remove yourself from distractions. So that might mean you leave your phone in the other room so that you can do your meditation or whatever. Exercise is such a good one. Like I said, I've been trying to get in the gym regularly again. And yeah, a big motivation for that is because it is always swimsuit season somewhere. Just like they always say, it's happy hour somewhere. It's swimsuit season somewhere. So I'm good. Read a physical book. I should have brought your book out here with me, Anthony. I meant to do that too, because I was thinking about saying something about it. So read a physical book. Now, reading any kind, doing any kind of reading is going to be amazing for you, right? I do a lot of audiobooks because the way my days are packed, sometimes when I'm getting ready in the morning, I'm in the shower, I do my makeup, my hair, all of that stuff, driving to work, driving home from work while I'm exercising, great time to put on audiobooks. But a great way to rebuild your ability to focus is to read a physical book. And again, be kind to yourself because you're going to start to find yourself trailing off and doing other things. Not if it's a real engaging book. So I posted 2 weeks ago, I think it was, that I had gotten Mr. Anthony Knight's book, and it's his second one, and it's his second book of this. And I have to tell you guys, the second one, okay, the first one, it took me a couple days. I read through it. I really loved it. I loved the storyline. I was like, oh my God. And by the time I was done, I was like, are you kidding? You can't leave me hanging like this. It's one of those kinds of books. So the second one, when I picked it up, I'm not lying to you guys, I read it in one night. I kept thinking, okay, I should put this down because I really need to go to sleep. I have to work in the morning. And then I couldn't. I had to read through the whole thing in one night. So Anthony, kudos to you because you had me engaged in that real big time. So reading a physical book is a great idea. So just, realize that we have to train ourselves again to not be so distracted by things. If you think about, so I'm 45. So back in the day when I was a kid, there weren't all these distractions. We didn't have smartphones. If you got a phone call, you had to sit because there was a cord. You had to sit close to the phone. So you couldn't be walking around the house cleaning. Now, eventually, yeah, they came up with cordless phones and stuff like that. But, you had to kind of sit on the phone and be focused on that conversation that you were in. When you watch TV, when you would sit down to watch TV, now my family was big. We had TV, we could watch a half hour of TV on weekdays. That was it. And 1 hour on the weekends. And so a big one for us was always the Cosby Show on Thursday nights. So we would watch the Cosby Show. We would do it as a family. We would sit there and watch it. And you didn't get all distracted by things. You weren't trying to do 500 things at once. Now, granted, also I was a kid. So I didn't have a whole bunch of other stuff going on up here in my mind as much as I do as an adult, like, oh gosh, what am I going to cook for dinner tomorrow and stuff like that. But if you find yourself getting distracted, maybe try to think of some of those simpler times. Think of the times when we didn't have some of these distractions. I'm challenging myself. So I posted last week that every morning when I wake up, I am grabbing for my phone first thing when I wake up. And that's because I'm watching that video that I shared last week. It's 2 minutes and 36 seconds. That's all. But it's 2 minutes and 36 seconds of pure motivation, of pure self-love and positive self-talk. So I can do that. Right? I think that's a great idea. I was watching, I got the movie. It's on Netflix. I didn't know you could find it on Netflix. I have been looking for it everywhere but Netflix. But there's a documentary for the book called The Secret. And I had realized that it was on Netflix. So I watched it. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I realized that a lot of times when I'm watching stuff, even if a friend sends me a motivational video and I'm watching it, I catch myself doing other things on my phone at the same time. I caught myself watching on Netflix The Secret, and I caught myself doing other things on the phone. And I told my friend, I was on the phone with my friend Heather later on, and I said, I realized that I get really distracted by this stuff. So, and this is going to be probably my message next week, intentional, right? So intentionally, I'm going to put my phone away. And it was hard at first, man. I kept wanting to reach for my phone, but the more I left it aside, the more I really got into the documentary and into the movie. And I have to tell you, it blessed me. And I've watched it 4 times since, right? Which has only been a week. So that gives you a little bit of an indication, but just understand that we have to challenge ourselves to not be distracted because we know it's not good for us. I said last week, multitasking is like the enemy, right? And for a long time, that was a big thing. People wanted it on the resume. Ooh, multitasking. Now it's a horrible thing because we know when people multitask, they're not doing anything at 100%. And I'd rather get 10 minutes of somebody's 100% than 20 minutes of somebody's 25% or something along those lines. So hopefully that's helpful. Just looking at some of the things that might be distracting you, feel free to type into the chat if one of these things that I triggered on, or maybe I missed something that's a distraction for you. But feel free to type into the chat. Let me know what's been distracting you. If you have any ways that help you keep focused on things and different things like that. But until next week, thank you guys so much for jumping on with me tonight. The vice presidential debate might be over by now, but they might still be bickering at each other. So feel free to go have fun with that. I'm not going to do that. I got my 20 minutes of entertainment out of that. So you guys have a great night. Happy Wednesday. And until next week, dream big. Bye.